It was 2010 and I was working as a data processor for a government department. It was one of the most boring jobs in the world, and one of the only reasons that I was doing it was because I was playing in a band and I was trying to have enough money during the day to actually fund my dream of becoming a musician. That dream didn't work out, which is absolutely fine. But one thing that did happen back then was I started to search for an opportunity, a new way to build a business online. But at that time, as I was trying to figure out what to do on the internet, I felt completely stuck in my job. I didn't know where to go or what to do, and I'm making this video if you feel in that situation, and I'm going to try to give you some advice that I hope is going to help you have a breakthrough today and figure out how you can potentially move from just working in a job to getting something up and working online on the side initially, and down the line, who knows, even full time. So let me give you some big tips today that I hope are really helpful. Let's talk about the security blanket effect. This is something that stops most people from venturing out of being in a job to actually starting a business. And it really comes down to something that is called learned helplessness. Some people even call it the golden handcuffs syndrome. A number of years ago, there was a scientific study done where they took a bunch of animals, I believe it was monkeys, and they put those monkeys into a controlled environment. Every day they fed those animals at a very specific time during the day. I think it was 3 or 4 times in a day. Initially, the monkeys used to just be like, oh cool, there's some food, and they would eat the food whenever they felt the need to actually eat something. But as time went on, they started to anticipate when the food was going to come, at what time it was going to come, and all of that. So what ended up happening was whenever the person was going to come and feed the monkeys, they were literally standing there ready to receive whatever food was provided, and they were then eating it. They left the animals in there for a number of months, I believe it was. You can go and check out the study yourself if you want to get the exact information. But anyway, they had them there for a number of months, and then they took them from this controlled environment and they put them back out into the wild. Well, what happened, you might have wondered? Unfortunately, the animals did not survive very long. And the reason was because they had learned helplessness, because they had been in an environment where they were given everything at a very set period of time. They stopped figuring out that they could literally just go out into the wild and there was all the food and resources that they needed, but it was going to be up to them to go and bring those resources together and survive. Now, why am I telling you that? Well, a lot of people, when we work in a job, I was in this situation when I was working in a job, I really learned that helplessness. I thought to myself, there's nothing I can do. There's no way I can possibly get out of this situation, because I had this security blanket woven so tightly around me that I didn't even see any opportunities. Everything felt pretty much impossible to do. But I'm here to tell you something. All the resources you could possibly want, they may not be in your bank account right now, they may not be in your house right now or whatever, but the resources are out there, and it's up to us as people who look to take responsibility for our income to go out and utilize those resources to our disposal. And sometimes it just comes down to the fact that you may not know what resources you need, how to bring them together, and then how to actually create something bigger from all of that. And obviously that's why we teach what we do here at Marketplace Superheroes, and I hope as the video goes on, you're going to be able to have some more realizations as to how to actually do this. But anyway, just to say that when you're working in a job and you have this security blanket, there's a certain level of attachment we have then to the comfort that we live. Even though might be in a situation where I'm not particularly happy in this job, I'm still comfortable, right? And when you're comfortable, unfortunately, it can be very easy to become somewhat comfortably miserable. I was in that situation when I was in my earlier 20s, when I started this whole thing 14 years ago. And it took me a long time to break out of that. And a lot of it just came down to the fact of I was really a bit too comfortable. Maybe you're not really happy right now, but you're experiencing this. And if you are, jump down into the comments and let me know. I'd be really interested to see. You can just put in the number 1 if you feel like this right now. And don't worry, because there's a lot we can do about it. And let's get on to the next point. Let's talk about the money myth. A lot of people, when they're considering building a business online, they think they're going to need tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, pounds, euro, like whatever currency you operate in. They think they need a lot of money to get something started online. Look, years ago, that was often the case because you had to go out and get a property or a location. You had to get a whole bunch of different equipment, and it really did cost a lot of money to start something. It could have been as much as 100 or 200,000. I mean, even if you consider starting a coffee shop or a restaurant in your local town or city, it's going to cost a lot of money to do something like that. Now, over the years, people have gotten a bit smarter, right? Maybe they wanted to start a coffee shop, but they thought to themselves, well, I don't want to get like a big location or anything. Here in Ireland, for example, we've got a number of different people that have started these coffee outdoor units in like a horse box almost, that's been reconfigured to become like an outdoor coffee serving place. And so that's just an example of where people got a bit more resourceful. Still and all though, it would cost a significant amount of money to get the equipment and all to start a business like that. Why am I telling you all this? Well, obviously we at Marketplace Superheroes, we teach how to start online businesses. Let's just say, for example, we talk a lot about Amazon, right? And if you're going to start a business on Amazon, reselling brands with the arbitrage model or the wholesale model, even the private label model, in comparison to a traditional business, it really doesn't cost you all that much money to start something. And on the other side of that, there's people out there when they look at, say, an Amazon arbitrage business, for instance, where you could potentially start with as little as $100 or pounds, right? And get that started. Here's the thing, some people don't even want to put in that amount of money. They think they can start a business with no money whatsoever, and overnight they should be able to make a lot back. Now, some people will say that's just not true, Stephen. I don't feel like that at all. And I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time with people over the last number of years, and there's people who will tell me, I want to make 20,000 per month in profit with my online business. And then I say to them, okay, so how much are you willing to invest to start it? And they say $100, $500, right? Now, here's a reality to that. It is actually possible to build up a very small amount of money into a bigger amount of money over time. It's just going to take a long time, because if we get a return of 20 or 30% on our money and we're compounding that, it's going to take potentially years if we only start with a few $100, $500, something like that. So what's the antidote to this? Is it to go out and get a huge bank loan? No, it's to understand that it probably is going to take you a couple of grand to start an online business, but compared to how it was years ago, that's absolutely nothing for what you're getting nowadays. Like if you take Amazon, for example, you can pay about $40 a month and you can access their millions of customers for that amount of money. Now, okay, you will pay a bit of pick and pack and shipping and things like that and some commissions whenever you sell your item, as is normal, but to actually get an Amazon account, it's like $40. That just was never possible in the history of the world before. So for you now, if you're thinking to yourself, I need to have like 50 grand, 100 grand saved up before I can even do anything, that's just not the case. But at the same time, don't think for 1 second you're going to start a business with a couple of £100, a couple of $100, and you're going to become a millionaire in 30, 60 or 90 days. It's just not going to happen. And that's not a bad thing. That's a reality. But here's the other side of it. There is a reality that states in time, you can have a business built up and it can be making you a significant amount of money, but you got to be prepared to put money down to make that happen. It's either money or it's time. It's some kind of resource at the end of the day. And if it's all about time, it usually comes down to skill and knowledge. And if it's about money, skill and knowledge are important too, but oftentimes that's going to be maybe the resource that's required more at that particular time. When we start a business, oftentimes our spouses, our partners, other people in our family are not always particularly positive about that. And the reason is because they're afraid. They've never done it before in most cases, and they're looking at you working in a job right now, considering starting a business, having never done it before. And as someone that they love, someone they're trying to protect, they're trying to stop you from doing that because they don't believe it's possible for themselves to have success with an online business. Unfortunately, I do see a lot of people listening to this advice and stopping themselves from doing something that they actually want to do, which can be even just as simple as getting a couple extra $1,000 or pounds on the side per month with something online. Like, it doesn't take that much to build something like that. It's not going to happen overnight now, but it's not like something that's impossible, something that you just could not do. But unfortunately, there's a lot of pressure often put on us whenever we as entrepreneurs, or if you don't want to think about yourself as an entrepreneur, that's absolutely fine. Me as someone who wants to get something working online, I have a lot of pressure from my family, right? If I don't work, there's this loss of status that can potentially happen. Well, I've got really good news. There's many opportunities online, like selling on Amazon, just for example. There's many others, but it's just a good example where it's a faceless business. No one's really going to see you building this business. You're not going to have like loads of ads with your face all over or anything like that. Even when you're selling on Amazon, they're not even going to know who your company is. And it's highly unlikely that they're going to land on products that you're selling. I mean, just is unlikely. It could happen, of course, but even if they do buy from you, almost nobody is going to look and see what's the address of the company, who are they. They're going to go search like the company name and everything. That's just not going to happen in like 99.99999% of the times. when it comes to our friends and our family. So that pressure really does come down with something like what we're talking about today. Now, I know you might have your spouse, your other half, and they're seeing the credit card statements, they're seeing that you're making investments to learn stuff or whatever. And look, that can be a big concern because sometimes maybe you bought lots of other things in the past, they haven't worked out, whatever. But at the same time, that comes down to a level of communication. That comes down to, this is something I really want to do. I really want you to get behind me and let's work together on it. And just know something, like the perceived loss of status you have in your brain right now about you not succeeding with something like this, here's the reality. The only way you fail at anything is you just stop doing it. So if you keep on going back and trying again, like in most cases, you eventually are going to figure it out. Just because you keep trying and you keep moving, you don't stop. Now, at the same time, am I saying take hundreds of thousands of your money, throw it into some random idea and just keep doing that until you're broke? Obviously not. But really what I'm talking about here is finding pre-proven processes that you know someone else has proven out, following through on those, and just keep going. If you make mistakes, if things don't work out, that's just going to happen. That's absolutely fine. As long as you keep going, you're not going to be looked down upon by your family. As a matter of fact, when you do make it successful, they're going to be like, wow, you showed so much determination, so much grit, so much of all the things that people want to display in their lives, and you actually did it. And what a better way to show your kids that you're able to do something by actually saying you're going to do something and actually following through on it. Now, of course, it's still a faceless business. So at the end of the day, if you don't want to tell anybody, they never have to know. I want to talk about identity for a second because it's important. Maybe you're working in a career right now. You're a solicitor, you're an accountant, something like that. You worked a long time to get some different qualifications to become credible in the eyes of the world, right? You went out there and you built a successful career doing something that maybe you thought you wanted to do, but over time, you've realized this is really not something that's actually for you and you want to make a change. The reality is that we often get really attached to that identity. Now, I myself, I've not been either of those kinds of professions, but I can understand now, being a so-called successful entrepreneur, other people might see me in that way. And if I wanted to make some big change, some big shift in my career, that would be looked down upon as a bit odd. So I kind of get that at this point in my career now. So if you're in that situation, just understand, look, at the end of the day, what's important is what you want. There's always the trap of thinking, you know, what are other people going to think when I go out and do this? And what are they going to say? But like I just said on another point in this video, no one really needs to know what you're doing with most online businesses, because oftentimes they can be faceless. At the same time, certain businesses really can't be, and they shouldn't be, and that's okay. But the businesses that we often talk about here at Marketplace Superheroes are that. They're somewhere where you can be behind the scenes and no one necessarily needs to know what you're doing. So if you do have that attachment, number one, it's okay. Totally understand that that is something you may have. Totally normal. You spent a lot of your life actually learning how to do that thing. And just know you don't have to throw it all away overnight. You can start small and you can grow it from that small base over time by taking small, very calculated leaps over time. And then eventually, who knows, maybe you do put yourself in a position where one day you're making enough from what you're doing online where you can make a career shift and then only do the online business. I do know other people in my network who have made shifts like this over the years, and it's something that they didn't do overnight, and that's absolutely fine, but it's something that they eventually did. Like my friend Ben, known as Dr. Ben, he was a chiropractor. He made a shift many, many years ago to doing stuff online. Now he does all kinds of different online businesses, having started out as a chiropractor, so it's definitely possible. Here's another big one, the time loop trap, right? It's so easy to always wait for the perfect moment. Always go, just one more month, right? And that's something I want you to think about now. Many, many years ago, I used to tell everybody that I wanted to start an online business. I was the guy in the bar talking about all the big things I was going to do. And the reality is that when I first met my initial mentor, Robert, and I told him I wanted to build this big online business, he said, like, how are you going to make that happen? And I said, I have no idea. And he's like, well, if you've no plan, there's no possible way you can do it. Whereas if you have a plan, when you have a plan, not that it's just going to inevitably happen, it's that it's much more likely when you do have a plan of action. And so one of the things we always want to do at Marketplace Superheroes is help people like yourself actually be given an initial plan, use that plan up until a point where you have actual experience in having success with an online business. And from there, then you can innovate on the plan. You can start to bring in your own ideas when you get some experience. One of the biggest sayings there is about starting any kind of company of any kind, and I want to share with you as well before we end today's video, you're going to learn way more about doing business by being in business. You can read all the business books you want. You can do all the online courses you want. You can watch all the YouTube videos that you want, but until you actually step up onto the plate, you start doing the business, that's when the real lessons are going to happen. It's the action of taking information and applying that information is going to change a lot of things for you. And that's one of the reasons why we do offer coaching at Marketplace Superheroes, because we know the value of being able to have feedback from another human being. Now, I'm not making this video about a pitch for coaching or whatever, but the point is that's why we offer those things, because without having that human feedback, you can't know whether you're doing things right or wrong. And it doesn't matter if you're listening to us or somebody else. I highly encourage you to look for that type of feedback as you start anything online of any kind. It doesn't have to even be Amazon, anything that you're looking into. It just makes sense, because at the end of the day, there's loads of people have already figured out exactly what you want to do, and all you've got to do is find those people, find their plan, execute their plan, and over time you can innovate on that. So look, I hope some of these things have helped you today. And one thing I will say in just closing is it's really easy to get addicted to the structure of having a job, knowing how your day is going to go. That type of certainty, there's a motivating factor to that, but there's also a big motivating factor to uncertainty, not always knowing how everything's going to go, not always being guaranteed of an outcome. At the end of the day, we're all guaranteed of one thing in this life. Life's not going to be here forever for all of us, right? So while we're here, why not make it as best as we possibly can? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Do give it a like as well, and do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to jump down to the comments and say thanks, love this video, whatever. It really helps the videos and it really helps the channel.